All right, welcome to part 3 of the top 5 mistakes that entrepreneurs make. My name is Brenda, and I've given you the parts 1 and part 2 is cash flow and the issues with self-accountability and how important that is, how critical it is for you to have some people in your life that can keep you accountable, right? Really easy for us solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, people who are starting out early to have lack of accountability. So in this part today, though, in this video today, in this part of the series, I can't really talk today, so just bear with me. But in this part of the series today, we're going to talk about self-reflection and how important that is. You know, that last week we talked about self-accountability, which is all well and good. But the reality is, unless you are aware enough to evaluate yourself, and this is something I actually deal with quite often in my team leadership development with corporate clients, where I go in and I do team leadership development. We find out what the gaps are. We find out what their leaders are, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, and how we can embolden them in their weaknesses and rise them up to operate at their peak potential. A big issue that comes up often in leadership for whatever reason is a lack of self-awareness. So being able to really self-reflect. And so I've even created for my corporate clients a list, like each week where you go through and you evaluate yourself based off of this criteria, right? Like, what are my strengths? Discover your strengths, discover your weaknesses, write them down on paper, go through a list. And as an entrepreneur or solopreneur, or even a CEO, right? Like whatever your role is, make a list of the things, of your duties, of what's required of you every single day. On the daily, right? Or like through the course of a week, your major tasks that you have to get accomplished, right? And once you've got that list down, start rating them on a scale of like 1 to 10. 10 is, I crushed this. I'm the boss at this. 1 is not so much. Okay. I really kind of suck at this. This is not my wheelhouse. Anything that's a 5 or below on that list, try to figure out a way to delegate. And as you do this, you've got to remain objective about yourself. Don't look at yourself as yourself. Don't be hard on yourself like, oh my God, Brenda, you should be able to do this. Or, you know, like, why don't you have this figured out yet? Or yada, yada, whatever. Just get objective. We're just looking at the facts here. And everybody has strengths and weaknesses. So if you can remove any kind of tie of emotion as you do this and stay objective with yourself, the more clear you're going to be on your rating on that list, and the more efficient you're going to get with your business, okay? Because as you get clear, as you're able to be honest with yourself instead of clouded by emotions or blowing smoke up your skirt or berating yourself harder than maybe you think you're better at something than you think you are. Because oftentimes, I know that's one of my issues is I've got a perfectionist issue thanks to my dad. And I often am hard on myself. Nobody's as hard on me as I am as hard on me, right? No one will cut me up one side and down the other the way that I can. So as you go through that rating system, just make sure that you're objective, okay? And then that way you can get clear, all right? So there's the first step that you can take for your self-awareness is if you're not really in tune with this. And the more you do this, here's the other deal. The more you do this every week, again, like I said last week, set your routine, build this into your routine that you're going to do self-reflection, typically at the end of the week, right? Before the weekend, before you forget how the week kind of went. Right? Do it on a Friday. Do it Friday morning. Do it Friday afternoon, whatever it takes for you. But allocate that time every single week. At this time, nobody gets to interrupt you. You're going to get objective. You're going to evaluate yourself. And now you have a basis and a litmus test. Do it on paper. Keep record of it on your computer. I don't care what you do. This isn't critical to handwrite out. I make my clients write out a lot of their stuff simply because of the brain-hand correlation and the retention and all that kind of stuff. That's a different subject. But this is something you don't have to necessarily write out. You're just trying to get metrics, right? Track yourself. Are you progressing and improving in these areas? The areas that are 5 or below, see if you can outsource those. Find those to give to someone else. And that brings me to number 2. Now that you know your strengths and weaknesses, hire well. It is so critical that your hires be on point. You have got to, I love, Patrick Lencioni talks about the ideal team player having humility, people smarts, and hunger, right? Those are the 3 ideal virtues that you want out of an employee. And these are something that you just become a non-negotiable. If they don't have these 3 things, they are not allowed on your team. Now, there's some people that are going to have, maybe you have existing team and you're like, oh crap, they're lacking these virtues, or crap, maybe I'm lacking these virtues, right? Where you get to cultivate one of those virtues in your space, in your own life, where once you recognize it, it's really easy to see it in your life, right? only if you're self-aware though. So if you lack one of those three attributes, put it on your list. Was I humble this week? Give examples of how you were. Give examples, write down and document how you weren't. Like, oh crap, there was this time on Wednesday in the boardroom when Julie said something to me and I snapped at her and I wasn't, and I was like, that's a dumb idea or whatever it might be. Track that, write it down. Because again, in that, you do want to write that stuff out. When you write that stuff down, it ties your emotions to it more and you're able to tap into more empathy. Like, oh crap, I wasn't humble with that person and now I feel bad. And maybe it warrants an apology and you get to circle back and you get to rectify and reconcile the situation instead of just leaving it on the table. Okay. So now that you know what your strengths and weaknesses are, hire accordingly. If you are a visionary and you are like I am, I'm like, okay, what about this idea, that idea? I could go do this and this will be so fun and da, 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 da. The problem is I don't like to implement. I've always thought I was an implementer because I'm really driven and I'm really focused and I can be really organized, right? But the older I get and the more that's on my plate just in a personal life with my kids and they're getting older and all kinds of stuff, the less capacity I have for implementing. So I hire out everything that's possible. If there's something that I know that I'm not going to get done, then I just say, hey, listen, are you capable of doing this? You fit my criteria of a hired employee. Everybody that I contract, mind you, fits this criteria as well, even if they're not an employee, because I don't have employees, I have contractors, right? Where I contract out multiple different things. But every person that I contract out has to meet this criteria as well, or they're not a fit. They're immediately out the door within a week or two. I can pick up on it really quickly, and I find that out. And the strengths, like we'll just say my video guy. He does a lot of my video stuff. He does all the editing. I knew I wasn't good at that. I suck at that crap. I'm not going to get it done. It'll sit there for hours and hours and hours, or days and days and days, more appropriately, if not weeks, and it's not going to get accomplished. So, but for me, it's one of the moving parts in my business in marketing that has to happen. So I hired it out. And because he's such a rock star, he's the A+ star on my team. So I really suggest that as you do that, you only hire people that are top notch. Your company, they're a reflection of you on your company, whether anyone sees their face or not. The work they produce, the quality that they do, the effort that they put into it, their passion and desire behind you and your mission and what you're doing, it really matters. So like I said, once you've found those strengths and weaknesses, hire accordingly, do your self-assessments each week. The more you start to do this, the more you become self-aware, the less often you might have to go back to that list where you're evaluating in the moment now. You're triggered, you're like, oh, you immediately walk out of that boardroom, you say something to Julie snarky, and you can immediately turn around and say, I was off base there, I'm so sorry, can you forgive me? I'd love to hear more about your idea. Right? So when you're cultivating this within yourself and this self-awareness, the more you cultivate, the more it comes, the less you have to rely on the Friday self-awareness hour, right? Okay. All right, you guys. So that's my tip for today. Have an excellent day. If you like what you see, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share this if you know of anybody that's going through this, and click the bell so you get to be notified when we put new content up. Thanks so much.